This is my review of Pluribus Season 1. What's going on, people of Earth? It's Ty the TV Guy here, back with a video about Pluribus Season 1. I'm going to be giving all my thoughts on this, kind of a quick plot summary, giving my pros and cons of the season, and of course a final score with how much I like this. So before I get into it, make sure to like the video, comment down below how you're feeling about Pluribus so far, and then subscribe to the channel for more TV content. So of course, if you haven't heard, this is the creation of Vince Gilligan, with the help of others, of course, but he is the creator of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, two of kind of the widely agreed upon best shows in recent history and two of the best of all time, to be honest with you. So it's fair to say expectations were high heading into Pluribus, and I do think that this season lived up to expectations for me largely. Now, like I said, I'm going to get into pros and cons. I want to start out by saying, naturally, talking about the first episode, that the first episode was absolutely bonkers, was incredible, maybe my favorite pilot episode of television ever, certainly the best in the trio of shows that we've gotten from Vince Gilligan, in my opinion. The apocalypse, essentially, that takes place because of the virus spreading throughout the world is so intense. Carol's reaction to the situations feel real, feel frantic, as they should, of course, and it's just an hour-long heart attack. At least it was for me, essentially, on first watch. So yeah, the pilot episode, We Is Us, it's called, absolutely incredible. Really my favorite episode of the season. So it started out with a bang for sure, and I just think they did such a good job of setting the scene, setting the world that Carol finds herself within, and some of her disturbances and troubles as a person with her alcoholism and with kind of like her cynical view on things, as it was established in the brief time we have with her and her spouse early on in the first episode, and then just her reaction to things and the flat out mystery of what the heck's going on was so exciting but scary as an audience member. So yeah, I applaud the first episode through and through. It was absolutely great. As far as, the plot and a lot of the mystery being revealed to us throughout the season, I think that's, one of the best elements of the shows as well. As we go through, we learn more and more. It became clear, all the way back in the first episode, that this is a hive mind, and so individuality has basically been lost. I guess, according to the infected people now, individuality has been lost and replaced by, like a wonderful feeling that being infected by this virus gives you. Everyone's happy, everyone's helpful for each other. You can't be mean, you can't kill. You're just like all around a good person, and it's like this warm, fuzzy feeling. And so, of course, our main character, Carol, is very disturbed by this change. Of course, she suffered the loss of her wife, which was awful for her, but also the loss of like almost all the real people in the world around her. There were only 12 other people like her that weren't affected by the large spread of this virus on Earth. So very few and far between. And so from the very beginning, Carol's quest was to reverse the spread of this virus, and she had basically began, over the first few episodes, compiling data points and trying to understand various things with these people's behavior, with the hive mind's interaction and behavior within it, and how she could potentially take advantage of some of its weaknesses. She uncovers through the first few episodes that they can't lie, they can't tell her no to anything, essentially. They're always nice, they're never going to kill. So she starts learning these things in an attempt to fully understand them so she can, essentially poke holes in them, understand their weaknesses, and try to reverse this thing, even if it's all on her own, which for a while it seemed like it was going to have to be. And so I've loved the uncovering of the mysteries throughout the season. I think that, the writing has made us wait for more details, but hasn't made us wait too long to the point where it would get frustrating. So I've been very happy with the uncovering of plot points. Like I said, that's one of my favorite aspects of the first season. I do just think the acting is great from the infected people, obviously, especially from Rhea Seehorn as the main actress here. She's awesome, kills it as I expected she would. I think that Zosha, the main member of the hive mind, that's obviously with Carol for much of the first season, also was acted and performed really well. Minosos, the man from South America who makes the trip up near the end of the season. Very interested in what's going on with him as well. Pretty good performance there. And so basically across the board, even though there haven't been like that many marquee characters that have gotten a lot of screen time, the ones that have, I think, have knocked it out of the park. Another great feature of this first season. Now, where this season might struggle a bit is that it is quite the slow burn. And even as someone who likes those more low-key moments, like some, investigating type of stuff, is more tolerant of kind of that slower pace. Even I, at times, was getting a little bit like, all right, let's pick up the pace here. Where are we going with this? Let's make some progress. And, I think that could have been intentional at points. It could have been intentional that things were going slow when nobody was in town to emphasize just how lonely Carol felt after all the people fled away from her because she disturbed the hive mind. So I think that could have been intentional. I think it could have also been intentional in the last few episodes because it was maybe trying to put us, the audience members, in agony because it was so frustrating that Carol, was shacking it up with Zosha, so to speak, just a couple months after the death of her wife. And it just seemed like she moved off of her fervent chase for a cure and for a reversal of this all for love with a member of the hive mind, which seemed really weird as a turn that her character made. So yeah, that was a frustrating point in the season, and the slow burn did get a little frustrating at times, though I think it may have been intentional. It did get a little too slow at times, even for me, who like I said, I feel like I'm very tolerant of slow-moving stories. I like the finer details. I like setting up the plot. And following how chaotic the first episode was, I didn't necessarily think we would keep it at that level the entire season, don't get me wrong, but I was thinking that this show would be a little bit more of an up and down type of experience than we ended up getting throughout. It was mostly, honestly, in my opinion, though the plot at large is still really interesting and a creepy concept that, the world's been overtaken like this, it kind of was more subdued for most of the season, especially in the second half, which is kind of the opposite of what you might be accustomed to with most shows. So it was an interesting experience because I definitely feel like the first half of the season was much more climactic, much more chaotic. You had a lot more high-stakes moments, whereas the second half, it was more plot development, figuring things out, Carol going through some things personally and feeling a connection to Zosha, despite her being a part of the hive mind and really the same as anyone else. Carol's decision-making in the last few episodes felt like a stark contrast to, where she was most of the season, where her head was at. I realized, like I said, being without people for so long definitely had a negative toll on her mental health, and I can understand that. I think if I went even a week without seeing people, I'd go crazy, and I believe she goes over a month in the show without seeing them, so I could understand how she'd be receptive to them coming back a little bit. Going to the extent of sleeping with Zosha and like becoming her lover and like all buddy-buddy with her all of a sudden and trusting her, that's where it got a little weird and unrealistic for me, given how staunch Carol was in her beliefs. I just never thought she'd have been knocked off her mark the way she was and distracted from the task at hand, which is saving the world. And you get someone like Minosos who finally comes up from South America, makes this journey like halfway across the world, and then Carol's like pointing a shotgun at him and telling him to get away. Like, that was hard to watch, not gonna lie. But I know it was supposed to put your stomach in a knot and make you upset. Didn't love it though. And then one of my biggest problems with this first season that I just don't understand, like, I just don't even understand the goal of it, like, from a writing perspective. I guess maybe to isolate Carol. But, the fact that all of the other, non-affected people that were able to speak English and meet with her early in the season, all the other ones didn't really see a problem with it and felt no urgency to save the world. And, no, these are still my family. Everything's fine. I thought that was a bit far-fetched as well. And I just don't really understand the writing choice. Like, how does that positively affect the plot? Would it make it too easy if they were all agreeable? Would it make it too easy? I feel like this is still a hard task either way. Okay, a couple of them agree that this is, really bad. It's not like they have an easy solution from there. So I just don't really understand why they had to make it, like, so unrealistic in terms of, like, these characters just completely thinking, yeah, everything's fine. I understand it is still their family members' like bodies, and it could be hard to detach from that, especially early on. But it appears that they all continue to go along with it and just live their lives amongst the hive mind. And they're like, well, yeah, things are different, but who's to say it's worse? Yeah, that was kind of unbelievable to me, and I just don't really understand the writing choice. I guess if you understand it, put it in the comments. But what does having them all disagree and kind of grow like a hatred toward Carol because she's defying against things, what does that do to benefit the storyline here? Is that to isolate Carol? I don't know. I don't personally get it that much. But despite those couple frustrating factors, this season of television really did keep you on the edge of your seat, like I said, in my opinion, especially in the first few episodes. And I really liked when Carol was more in the mindset of trying to reverse this thing, really trying to push the buttons of the hive mind and get the answer she needed to save the world. You know, you see her even pushing Zosha to the limit to where she starts kind of seizing out again, and everybody's like pleading Carol to stop. I believe that's at the end of the third or fourth episode. Like I said, yeah, especially episode 1, but really the whole first half of the season I thought was go, 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 action-packed, really crazy stuff. And then, yeah, we get a more subdued plot line the rest of the season following some more development of the plot and of the characters, which I don't mind. I do think it was a little slow. But all in all, I find it to be obviously a pretty interesting and original plot. Not to say nothing like this has ever been done before. We've seen hive minds and similar ones in other shows, whether that's in individual episodes or as a whole concept. But generally, this does, for me at least, have like a new flavor to it. And I haven't personally seen like a full show that's about something like this, so I really like it. The ending of season 1 was all right, I would say. You know, she kind of begrudgingly returns back to Minosos in her neighborhood and says, all right, yeah, it's time to save the world. She doesn't seem too happy about it, but she now realizes that Zosha and the hive mind, though they didn't technically like come out and lie to her because they can't lie once again, they are able to kind of withhold the truth, and she realized that they have been coming up with an alternative method to be able to infect her that would only take another, I don't know, month or 2, I believe they said, to develop. And so she now knows there's a sense of urgency. She can't keep sleeping around with Zosha. She has to figure out how to save the world. And I'm glad that, you know, her uncovering that fact finally refocused her. It was pretty frustrating following her for an episode or 2, like just careless and all of a sudden not minding that she's just, once again, interacting with and loving a hive mind member. It was all weird to me, and I didn't understand really the sudden change in heart from Carol. So a little disappointed in Carol for that. You know, I've seen the discourse online that she's like an unlikable main character, and I didn't feel that way through the first several episodes. She did kind of get on my bad side there for a while in the second half of things, but overall still like her. Love the performance for sure. I believe Rhea Seehorn won a Golden Globe for her performance in this, and I think it's well-deserved. A lot of spunky, attitude-filled performances that I think are really captivating from her. So props to Rhea Seehorn. I do think something this show is missing and will probably add to in the coming season, I would guess, is more like marquee main characters / protagonists. You know, I don't think this is the type of show where you're going to love a whole lot of people in it necessarily, but I still think there could be like 1 or 2 more protagonists or just, yeah, like main characters with interesting subplots. I know we got that with Minosos for the second half of the season, and so that was good. I'm still curious to see if like any of the other uninfected people are going to kind of turn and have a change of heart about this. I feel like that's still part of the storyline that kind of loses me a bit. But altogether, yeah, I think there were, you know, to summarize, some great uncoverings throughout the season. I like how Carol, despite sometimes wanting that human connection for most of the season, she's still working on something bigger, which is, you know, getting on her whiteboard, taking down notes about the weaknesses of the hive mind, things they can and cannot do in an attempt to understand them fully. So that she can devise a good plan against them. Ultimately, we learned a lot about Carol and the hive mind, but there's still a lot of other things out there to learn, in my opinion. They really left the door open for this to go on several more seasons, in my opinion, because despite, like I said, getting a lot of answers about what the hive mind is, certain things they can and can't do, you know, how they get their energy and food, all different types of things. We didn't really take any steps toward taking them down or reversing course on this. And so I feel like that could be a long process that could take up really all of season 2. And so I would anticipate this show to last for a while. That's just my take on it, though. Giving the whole season a score out of 10, I'm going to go 7.5. I really, really liked it. I think that's a very solid score, of course. I hesitate to go any higher than that because I think this show could reach higher heights for sure. And so I'm going to leave room for it to grow. And compared to some of my favorite shows that I'd have in the 8 to 10 range, I don't think it quite lives up to that. But it's certainly a great premiere season. Had, like I said, maybe my favorite pilot episode ever. It was just incredible. And I wish some of that intensity would have carried through the rest of the season. Not to say we shouldn't have those more low-key moments and intimate scenes, but I would have liked a bit more intensity and hecticness throughout. I think it would have served the story well, but I'm sure more is to come in season 2 and beyond. And so, yeah, really enjoyed Pluribus. Let me know what you guys think, and if there's anything I failed to mention that you thought was a really important takeaway from season 1. Altogether, though, I think we made a lot of progress, but at the same time, low-key didn't because of how slowly things progressed and where we left off at. I think a lot of work is yet to be done, and we're really in for a big ride in season 2 whenever that comes. So, like this video, subscribe to the channel, as I said earlier, guys. Appreciate if you made it this far, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace out.